pause right there. That statement just exposed the entire game. The WNBA moratorium drama everyone's been watching. It's not what you think. This isn't about fair pay or player solidarity. What just unfolded is one of the most calculated strategic moves in professional sports history. And it revealed something the media refuses to discuss: a massive conflict of interest sitting right at the heart of the players' union. Breanna Stewart, a WNBA superstar and union vice president, has been leading the charge, telling players not to sign contracts. Sounds noble, right? Player unity, collective bargaining power, standing strong together. Except there's one detail that changes everything. Stewart is a co-owner of Unrivaled, a brand new professional basketball league that directly competes with the WNBA for talent, attention, and revenue. You're watching someone wear three hats simultaneously: active WNBA player, union vice president with fiduciary responsibility to all players, and part owner of a competing league that benefits financially when WNBA players remain unsigned and available. That's not leadership. That's a structural conflict that would trigger immediate removal in any other professional organization. And the WNBA owners just checkmated the entire situation with one brilliant move. If you believe the real story matters more than the headlines, hit that like button right now. It tells us you're paying attention to what's actually happening, not just what you're being told to believe. Here's what went down. The WNBA and its players' union were locked in a moratorium. Negotiations stalled. Public pressure building. Players staging protests with inflatable rats outside arenas. Billboard trucks rolling through Manhattan. Social media campaigns demanding justice. The narrative was simple and powerful. Women athletes deserve fair pay. The league is finally profitable. Share the revenue. Then the league lifted the freeze and did something unexpected. They started sending out qualifying offers to free agents using the existing collective bargaining agreement. Standard contracts under the old pay structure, maximum salaries topping out around $250,000. Union leadership immediately told players not to sign. Full stop. Reject everything. Stay strong. Wait for the better deal that's coming. But here's where it gets interesting. The owners never expected players to sign those offers. That was never the point. This wasn't about getting signatures. This was psychological warfare, and it was executed perfectly. By sending those offers, the league put real numbers in front of every player, not promises, not projections, not union talking points about what could happen if everyone stays unified. Actual contracts with their names on them, offering guaranteed money right now. Then comes the comparison. Under the owners' proposed new deal, those same contracts would be worth 5 to 6 times more. A player currently making $100,000 could jump to nearly $500,000 in year one. Someone at the max would go from $250,000 to over $1 million by the end of the deal. That's not incremental. That's life-changing. That's buying a house instead of renting. That's financial security instead of flying overseas every winter just to survive. That's the difference between a career and a grind. And while players are staring at these numbers, union leadership is telling them to walk away, to keep fighting, to wait for something better. Better than what? Better than the biggest raise in league history? Better than contracts that would transform the financial reality for players who've been scraping by for years? That's the question starting to bubble up. And it's not coming from ownership. It's coming from players themselves, quietly, in group chats and locker rooms where the cameras aren't rolling. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Not every player is in the same position. The stars at the top, the ones with shoe deals and national endorsements, and now ownership stakes in alternative leagues, they have options. They have income streams. They can afford to gamble on a better deal. But what about roster spots 6 through 11? The players most fans can't name, the ones without sponsorships or backup plans. For them, Missing a season isn't a principled stand. It's a financial disaster they may never recover from. WNBA careers are short. Windows to earn are even shorter. Injuries happen. Form drops. Teams move on. There's no guarantee of another contract next year. And there's definitely no safety net if this one disappears. That's the reality the league just forced into the open. By sending those offers, they turned an abstract negotiation about principles into a concrete decision about survival. They made it personal, immediate, unavoidable. And they did it at the exact moment when unity matters most. Here's what makes this move brilliant. Union strength depends entirely on collective discipline. Everyone has to stay together. The second one player breaks, the pressure multiplies. One signature becomes 2, then 5. Then the entire strategy collapses. The league understands this. That's why the timing was perfect. Right when public sentiment was starting to shift. Right when the protest tactics were beginning to feel performative instead of powerful. Right when casual fans were asking why players were rejecting huge raises while claiming to be underpaid. The optics were already slipping. Inflatable rats and billboard trucks play well to the base, to the fans already fully invested in the cause. But to everyone else, it started looking like wealthy athletes complaining about money, while the league that's never turned a profit offers them record contracts. And that's where the Breanna Stewart situation becomes impossible to ignore. Stewart has been front and center in the push for players to reject offers. She's used her platform, her credibility, and her position as union vice president to tell players the current deal isn't good enough. Stay strong. Don't sign. We can get more. But while she's saying that, she's also building Unrivaled, a league that needs star talent to succeed, a league that competes directly with the WNBA, a league that benefits when WNBA players are available, unsigned, and looking for alternatives. You cannot serve both interests. It's mathematically impossible. Either you're advocating for the best deal players can get from the WNBA, or you're positioning your competing league to capitalize on WNBA instability. Those goals are fundamentally opposed. Yet somehow, the media has mostly avoided this conversation. There have been whispers, carefully worded questions, polite observations about potential conflicts, but nothing close to the scrutiny this situation deserves. Because if any other executive in professional sports, in any league, was simultaneously negotiating on behalf of employees while owning a competing business, they would be removed immediately. That's not controversial. That's basic corporate governance. But let's go deeper. Because the real genius of the owner's move isn't just about dividing the union, it's about exposing who actually benefits from prolonged negotiations and who gets hurt. Drop a comment right now. Do you think Breanna Stewart's ownership in Unrivaled is a conflict of interest? Or is this just smart business? We want to know where you stand on this. Let's talk about the math that different players are actually facing. The stars, the household names, they're insulated. Stewart has endorsement deals. She has national visibility. She has an ownership stake in a league positioning itself as the future of women's basketball. Sitting out a season hurts, but it doesn't wreck her financial future. Now compare that to a player making the league minimum. Maybe she's on her second contract, fighting to stay relevant, sending money back home to family, carrying student loans, hoping this year leads to another year. For her, the qualifying offer in her inbox isn't an insult. It's more money than she's ever seen in one place. The proposed new deal would multiply that 8 or 9 times. That's not abstract. That's the difference between financial stress and actual stability. That's being able to rest in the off-season instead of flying to Turkey or Australia just to pay rent. Union leadership is asking that player to gamble, to reject guaranteed money for the possibility of something better. To trust that collective strength will deliver a superior outcome. But what if it doesn't? What if the league waits them out? What if next year she's injured, or her form drops, or the team just moves on? Then, she's lost the biggest payday of her life betting on a strategy controlled by people who won't feel the consequences if it fails. That's not solidarity. That's survival instinct colliding with someone else's political goals. And the league knows it. That's why they calculated this moment so carefully. They shifted the entire conversation from ideology to individual reality, from collective power to personal choice, from what the union says players deserve to what each player actually needs right now. That's the part that should make everyone pause. When union leadership tells players not to sign, it sounds like collective bargaining. When that same leader owns a competing league, it starts looking like market manipulation. Because think about what Unrivaled needs to succeed. It needs star players. It needs WNBA caliber talent willing to consider alternatives. It needs the perception that the WNBA isn't offering enough. It needs instability in the established league. Every day the WNBA moratorium continues. Every headline about rejected offers, every story about players feeling undervalued, that's free marketing for Unrivaled. That's positioning the new league as the solution to problems the union is actively amplifying. You can't tell me that's coincidence. You can't tell me there's no connection between Stewart's union messaging and her business interests. The incentives are too perfectly aligned. And here's what makes this especially problematic. Most players don't have Stewart's options. They're not building alternative leagues. They're not fielding offers from multiple professional organizations. They have one path, the WNBA. That's it. So when leadership with external income tells them to reject transformative money and keep fighting, whose interests are really being served? The collective, or the people positioned to benefit most from continued disruption? The answer matters because unity only works if everyone's actually pulling in the same direction. And right now, the financial pressures aren't distributed evenly, not even close. The league has been covering WNBA losses for nearly 3 decades. That's not speculation, that's public record. The NBA has treated this as a long-term brand investment, absorbing red ink year after year with the understanding that women's basketball would eventually reach sustainability. That moment finally arrived. Viewership spiked, merchandise sales jumped, sponsorship deals materialized. The league started generating real revenue for the first time in its history, and the owners responded with the biggest offer ever. Salaries multiplying, benefits expanding, revenue sharing on the table. Everything the union claimed to want. But instead of celebrating progress, union leadership raised the stakes, demanded more, staged public protests, turned negotiations into theater. That strategy works when you're fighting obvious injustice. It's much harder when the offer on the table already represents generational change. And that's where public opinion started shifting. Early on, fans backed the players without hesitation. Equal pay, fair treatment, revenue sharing, all of it felt obvious and right. But when players started rejecting offers that would make them wealthier than they ever expected, when the protests continued even after massive raises were proposed, when the message shifted from "we're underpaid" to "we deserve more," without clear endpoints, that's when people started asking questions. Not hostile questions, fair ones. Like, if the league has never been profitable, where exactly is the extra money supposed to come from? If the offer already represents 5 times current salaries, what's the actual target that would satisfy the union? And if stars with alternative income are pushing strategies that hurt players, without those options, who's really benefiting here? Those questions don't make you anti-player. They make you someone paying attention to what's actually happening instead of just accepting the narrative. The league made this move knowing exactly how it would play out. They put pressure on individual players, not the union as a collective. They created private decisions, not public statements. They made every player calculate the risk personally. And once players start doing that math, once they're comparing real offers to abstract promises, unity becomes exponentially harder to maintain. If one player signs, the floodgates crack. If several sign, the entire strategy collapses. And if none sign but the pressure keeps building, careers get shorter, windows close, and opportunities disappear. Meanwhile, ownership can wait. They've been funding losses for decades. One more delayed season doesn't change their fundamental position. But for players in their mid-20s, watching their peak earning years slip away, that calculation is completely different. That's the checkmate. Not forcing players to sign, making them confront the reality that the people telling them to wait aren't the ones who'll suffer most if the waiting costs them everything. If you want the real story on where this is actually heading, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the next move won't be announced in press releases. It'll happen quietly, in private conversations, when the first player decides financial security matters more than union messaging. And when that happens, everything shifts. We're tracking every development, every leak, every backstage decision the mainstream media won't touch. This is where you find out what's really happening in the WNBA, not just what you're supposed to believe. The truth matters. And right now, the truth is that one brilliant strategic move just exposed the biggest conflict of interest in women's professional basketball.